Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with something really cool that I actually completely forgot about. This is the Papo Nautilus. I believe this figure had come out last year, if I remember correctly, and it is a prehistoric figure that I completely glanced over, forgot was even a thing, never even acquired, and had erased from my memory until I was recently looking around on Happy Hen Toys, and I happened to notice that they had this in stock, and it instantly hit me. I'm like, what was I doing? Why did I skip this? How did I forget about it? But luckily I now have it here, and we get a chance to check it out here on the channel, and I can say at first glance here, it's actually really nice. It's probably one of the nicest versions of a Nautilus that I have seen from anybody, although there aren't too many out when it comes to this species. There are only a handful. In fact, I think the only other one that I personally have would be the Collect A version. But again, at first glance, it looks really nice, so the only way to truly tell is with a closer look. Let's jump to it right now. So honestly, one of the things I think that makes this one stand out to me straight away is the gorgeous coloration we have. Papo has chosen a really natural but really quite flashy color scheme for this, and that's probably one of the most standout aspects of the figure as a whole, because we have this light tone and then this darker variation of a brown, and you can't dare deny that those colors play off of each other really nicely and absolutely pop in the best way possible. And the coloration is also really nicely applied. You know, in a world of questionable Papo paint jobs, this one looks really good, and I think overall the patterning looks fairly natural on the figure, on the shell of our Nautilus. And when you get nice and close, you can see the shell does have some pretty nice fine detail. For the most part, it does have a fairly smooth appearance, but at the same time it has some really nice light texturing to it, which is cool to see, again giving it a pretty decently detailed appearance to it. You will notice that we of course have the stamps and stuff over here. They did a good job of hiding the Papo stamp down here on the underside in the area where they used to balance the figure out, but the CE is very obvious, and then we've also got that number right there, which is also obvious. So this side's not so great, but when you turn over to this side, that's definitely the superior display side. You can also see the eyes are sculpted and painted pretty nicely. We've got a black spot and then a brown streak that runs down. You can see the same over here for this eye, so it's not like that's like laziness or anything like that as far as paint or sloppiness or anything, I should say, not laziness. That's the way it's meant to be. But as you lead out here into the front of our Nautilus, you can very clearly see we've got quite a bit going on when it comes to the tentacles. You can see we've got a similar brown, maybe slightly different as far as the shade goes compared to the striping that is coating most of the tentacles leading out. But there is also a dry brushing of a very light tone, kind of like a light gray, that is pretty abundant here through the course of a large portion of these. Not all of them have it. You can see there are quite a few that don't have that going on, but most of them do, at least in the early areas of the tentacles, and I think that looks pretty decent. The tentacles as a whole are sculpted fairly nicely. You can also see as you lead up here into the hood of the Nautilus, you can see again we have some really nice bumpy texture up here. There's also a brownish tone, which as well is pretty similar to the patterning that you see on the shell, and you can see on the hood we have this light tone that sort of, you know, outlines everything, and then you've got the brownish tone there in between, and then that light gray dry brushing all of that bumpy texture out there. And honestly, that's really about it. Of course, when it comes to a Nautilus, you're not going to find too much that really needs to be discussed, but when it comes to this species, I think it is a pretty cool looking version of it. Now, when it comes to a size, this one is fairly small for a length. If you go from the longest tentacle to the back of the shell, about 3 inches or 7.5 centimeters, and then for a height, you're looking at a little under 2 3/4 inches, or a little over, in between 4 and 4.5 centimeters, not quite at 4.5, but for a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A human being next to our Papo Nautilus, and you can see it's definitely a bit on the smaller side. By no means is this a large figure, and honestly, at the same time, I would say it's also one of Papo's best from the year of 2023. So that's also a plus for this figure, but still, again, fairly small overall. And due to my lack of Nautilus figures in my collection, we don't really have many to compare, so we'll just go with a few randoms, as we have the Schleich Diabloceratops and the Collect Day Deluxe Dimetrodon, as well as a Mattel Velociraptor and Dilophosaurus continuing to help to give us an idea of the size. And then one final comparison, I have the Collect Day version of the Nautilus next to the Papo version, and you can see, honestly, both are equally beautiful. I think maybe I would lean more toward the Collect Day version, honestly. Like, it's not by much, but I think it is just a little bit better. It's a little bit more highly detailed, and it seems like maybe they put just a little bit more into the paint apps of it, but overall they are both fairly similar as far as the quality goes, just obviously a good bit larger when it comes to the Collect Day version. So this Papo Nautilus figure is a pretty fun one. It's, you know, not an award-winning figure or anything like that, but for what it is, it's pretty decent, and it's also a fairly unexpected figure, in my opinion, from Papo. It's not something I've ever really seen them create previously as far as prehistoric figures go, so it is pretty cool to see one created by them now, and again, I think they did a fairly decent job as far as the sculpt goes. Again, it's nicely detailed, pretty vibrant when it comes to the detail overall. Of course, the detailing in the shell is fairly smooth, and that's what you would expect, but they still managed to, you know, iron out some fine details, some fine texturing, which looks really nice. The paint apps, as far as the application goes, is pretty nice. Some of the dry brushing looks a little iffy, but for the most part, it's pretty nice, especially the patterning in the shell, I think, looks really good. And overall, the paint application looks natural but flashy, so, you know, that's a plus as far as the figure goes as well. Again, there's not really much of anything to complain about as far as I'm concerned when it comes to this one. I think it's just a fun figure and a really unexpected figure from Papo. Definitely didn't expect them to make a Nautilus, but if you are interested in grabbing one and adding it to your collection, you can grab one from Happy Hen Toys, because that is exactly where I purchased mine, so I will include a link in the description to where you can do that. So make sure you do, and of course, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.